Hi Stampers, this is Terry Hartley with Rustic Barn Cards, and today we're going to make a card for the holidays. I know, it's only July. Today we're going to make a card from using a stamp set from our new mini catalog, August through December 2020. You can start ordering from this August 4th. But we're going to use the stamp set, Gnome for the holidays. And we're going to use the little gnome house and 2 of the 3 gnomes. So these 2 and the sentiment, there's no place like Gnome for the Christmas season. We are also going to use 1 die cut from Celebration Label Dies. And this is in our mini catalog. So I'm going to use this 1 die. It also has some hearts and leaves, different things that you can use. The materials that we need, before I show you the materials, let me show you the card we're going to make. So here's the card that we're going to make today. There's no place like Gnome for the Christmas season. So this is the card that we're going to make. It's kind of like a little window, and you have the 2 gnomes and the gnome house. We are going to be using lots of blends, as you can see. If you don't have blends, you could use colored pencils. We sell blends and markers. You can actually use any colors that you have. So you wouldn't have to color exactly as I'm going to on my card today. So what you're going to need. We're going to need that die. We're also going to need, and I'll bring in the dimensions so you can see those. My printer's acting up, so hopefully you can read that. But we're going to need a card base Whisper White 5.5 by 8.5. A piece of cherry cobbler cardstock 4 inches by 5.5 inches. And then we need a Whisper White 3 7/8 by 4 7/8. And then just a small little Whisper White 5/8 of an inch by 2 1/4. And then you will need a 6 by 6 inch designer series paper. So I've chosen a cherry cobbler, but a different sheet of designer paper than I did with my card. This one I'm going to do just a little bit a different pattern. And then you need a scrap of Whisper White cardstock to stamp your gnomes. The designer series paper that I'm using comes from the 'Tis the Season 6 by 6 inch designer series paper. And there are, the paper is just stunning. There's just lots of patterns on one side, and if you turn it over on the other side, you'll see poinsettias, candy canes, and just lots of different colors. And then it will show you on here that the colors for these designer papers is basic black, cherry cobbler, garden green, real red, shaded spruce, and Whisper White. So all of those will match with the designer paper. I'm going to take the cardstock, the 5.5 by 8.5. I'm going to fold it in half. I like to line it up. I crease it with my hand, and then I bring in my bone folder. Make a crisp edge. I'm going to move the dimensions, but I will have these at the end of the video. I'm going to go ahead and bring in that cherry cobbler layer and go ahead and adhere that to my card base. So I'm going ahead and add some green glue. And get that like I want. Go ahead and press that down. Then I'm going to lay this aside, and I'm ready to go ahead and die cut our designer series paper. I brought in my die cutting machine. I'm really looking forward to the new die cutting machine that's coming out very soon. So I'm going to lay my designer paper on the platform and the cutting, and then I'm going to lay my die. The flat side is toward me. And then I like to use these little sticky flags, I think they're called, or a sticky note, just to make sure that it stays there. And then I'm going to add my top cutting board, and then I'm going to run it through. Bring that back. Take off the sticky. Lift up my die, and it cut out the die, but we're actually not going to use this, but we're going to save it. We're going to use it for another project, and we are going to use this little window for our project. Let me move the machine out of our way. Then I brought in my trimmer. I need my designer paper to be 5 inches across. So I did go ahead and take off a little bit on each side to kind of make that a little bit more even, you know, about the same on each side. And then I need to turn this, and I'm going to make this 3, if we get it the right way, here we go, 3 3/4. So I'm making my little window. And I can use this for another card. And then here is the window that we're going to use. So 5 inches across, and then 3 3/4. So let me get this out of the way. I'm going to use a little trick that I didn't use on this card that I made, which is why the gnome house is actually taller than our stamp set. So I had to go ahead, which you could do, and make it a little bit taller. But this time what I'm going to do is that I'm going to lay my designer paper on my Whisper White 3 7/8 by 4 7/8. And then I'm going to take my pencil, and I'm just going to kind of make a little mark up there, which I can erase. And now I know that I want to stamp my house right here. And that way it'll work. Okay. I'm going to be using the black Tuxedo Black Memento because I'm going to be using blends, and when I use the blends, I want to use Memento so it doesn't smear. Okay, I'm going to ink up my house. I'm doing it this way because I can see if it's all inked. Okay. Now I'm going to take my house. I'm going to turn this paper a little bit. Press down and straight up. I'm going to go ahead and clean my stamp. I'm going to lay that aside, and then I'm going to bring in my paper so I can stamp the gnomes. So I'm going to ink up this gnome. Okay. Straight down, straight up. I'm going to clean that off camera. Okay, now I'm going to ink up the other gnome. Press down and straight up. I'll clean that stamp off camera real quick. Okay, and now I'm going to lay that aside, and I'm going to try to finish all my stamping rather, using my inks. I'm going to go ahead and close the memento. I believe we're finished with that. Now on this card, I use basic gray, but I think I'm going to use cherry cobbler this time to stamp my sentiment. And I have already mounted the sentiment, "There's no place like Gnome" for the Christmas season. And I'll go ahead and stamp that straight down and straight up. Great. And that is all we need for the stamps, or the ink rather. So all of our stamping is finished, and I'll lay that aside. Now I'm going to use the blends and color the house. I'm going to use my pencil first and go ahead and remove that pencil mark. And I'm going to use dark soft suede and light soft suede for the gnome house. And then for the grass, I'm going to use the dark old olive. So I'm going to take my dark soft suede, and because this is kind of small, I'm going to use the bullet side. Don't know what that is. Okay, and I am going to just kind of outline where those marks are already there for me. All right, and I'm going to go around here this little. Okay. Well, that is drying. I'm going to take the dark olive, and I'm going to use not the bullet, but the other brush, and just kind of do part of it in the dark, and then I will bring in the light olive to finish up. And I think I'll come up here and do those leaves. Sometimes I do the light first and then come in with the dark. I use crumb cake on the little window. But again, you can color this however you want. And I put a green doorknob. And then I wanted to show there was some light, so I brought in the dark daffodil delight. And I'm using the bullet just because there's not very much room here. The window's kind of small. And then I used light cherry cobbler for the door. I was just checking, that seemed like it said it was light, but it looked kind of dark, but I guess it is the light. And I can come back and I can trace over some of these little marks with the dark cherry cobbler to kind of give it some highlights, some shadows. And these will blend a little bit. I'm going to do the lights last. So with the soft suede, I'm going to do one light and then one dark. But I'm going to go ahead and color down here to show you how I did that. And then I have one already finished. So I used the dark soft suede for the stones. And again, you could, decide to use whatever color that you wanted. And then I brought in my crumb cake. So I have dark crumb cake and light crumb cake. So I'm going to take the dark, and I am going to use, not the bullet, but the other side. And I'm just going to kind of go like that to make some marks, and maybe even over here. Take my light. Come over here. And just kind of go over the dark that I made. So we're just kind of making the illusion of dirt, of ground. Of course, the sides will be covered up some. Okay, let me bring in the one that I already have done. Okay, I have this one finished. You probably don't want to see me color the entire gnome house, so I'm going to lay that right there. I am going to bring in my two little gnomes. Okay, so I'm going to quickly try to color and show you. We do have to fussy cut because there aren't any dies for this particular stamp set. So I decided to use light petal pink for their little noses. Now you could go ahead and color that across her face if you wanted to. For the beard, I'm going to later add a little bit of glitter, not litter, sorry. glitter with a Winkostella pen. So starting with him, I'm going to use just a Misty Moonlight blend. I'm just going to color the bow on his hat. Take a little cherry cobbler and just the little in the middle there add. And then I'm going to bring in the Old Olive, the dark, but again, you can color this just however that you would like. Then on his hat, I'm going to use the light Old Olive. And I'm just going to do every other one. And again, I can come in with the dark and do a little shading after I have the light in there. So I could kind of go around the hat, put a little, and then bring my cherry cobbler. I'm going to use the light cherry cobbler, and again, I'm going to use that bullet just because these gnomes are kind of small. So if you like the color, you'll like this, making this card. And you don't have to use the same colors that I'm using. Just whatever you have is fine. And then I'm going to color his little shoes. And then I'm going to use light crumb cake. Sometimes it's hard without looking to see. And I'm going to, guess maybe like he has some socks on. And then the Old Olive, I'm going to put right here for his pants. And then come in with crumb cake for his shirt. And there's a little bit right here on his right arm. And over here. And so for his, the bulb that he's carrying, I am just going to use Misty Moonlight. And I am just going to color the middle. Okay. And I think he is finished. That didn't take too long, did it? So then what I would do is to take my scissors and cut him out. So you can just leave a little bit of white as you cut him out. He is a little bit harder than the girl gnome because right up here is kind of tricky. So just go around. And so this is a little tricky right in here because it's a hard angle to get to. But just use a little patience and you can get it cut out. Okay, I already have two already finished coloring that I did earlier, so I'm going to bring those in so you don't have to watch me do all of that. but I did want to show you how I colored. Now we're ready to put our card together. Okay, I moved all the blends out of the way, and we're ready to put our card together. I'm going to bring in the glue. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to put glue around the edge here of my Whisper White card that has the house on it. So I'm just going to put a thin layer of glue and get my little gnomes out of the way. Then I'm going to bring in my DSP, and I want to make sure the edge of this is right on the top of the tree so I don't have to, do some more drawing like I did on the first card that I made, although I don't think it looks too bad. Okay, I think that looks good. There may be a little bit, a little bit of white showing, and I could bring in, looks like it's the light soft suede, and I could kind of fix that. All right, now we're ready to adhere this to our card base, and we want to be putting it right here. Okay, so we're going to lay it right here. And I got that too far up. So there we go. Okay. Now we're ready to bring our little gnomes in. I decided that maybe I might want to just kind of use my hands or use the bone folder to kind of make her hat, give her a little bit of a dimension. And I'm going to turn her over and add some glue dots, or dimensionals, not glue dots. And I can put 2 of the large, and then I think I'm going to come in and put 1 more of the small. And I'm going to take the paper off of the dimensionals. And I'm going to place her right down here. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in the other gnome, and I think I'm going to do the same. Maybe just give him a little bit of a even with his feet, maybe with his shoes. So it looks like he has a little bit more dimension. I'm going to kind of decide where I want to place him. I also have my sentiment, which, you could put it up at the top on either side, so you could put it right in the middle. I'm going to turn him over and add some dimensionals. And I think I will put 1 on his hat, the smaller one, and take off the paper. All right, and then I'm going to put him, maybe Let's try it about right there. All right, then we're going to pop up our little sentiment. I'm going to put 3, 1 on each side and then 1 in the middle. And I'm going to use 3 of the larger dimensionals. Okay, turn that over. And then I don't think I'm going to do mine quite in the middle. I'm going to maybe kind of, maybe lined up with that door a little bit. So a little bit to the right. But I'm going to bring it up enough that you can see it, some of the designer paper below the sentiment. So there we go. We have our card. There's no place like Gnome for the Christmas season. And it's kind of like a little window. So here's the first card that I shared with you. And then here's the card that we made. So I don't know which one you like the best. But I think I like the designer paper, both of them equally. I think I do like this one better, maybe. The one like it's supposed to be. Let's add the Wink of Stella on his beard and his mustache. This just gives a little bit of glitter, a little bit of a shine. And this is called Wink of Stella. You can buy this in my store at terryhartley.stampinup.net. And I'll see, I don't know if you can see on camera or not, the little bit, the shine to his beard or not. If you place an order in July, remember to use the host code. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.